Bet on Bears fans, another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast coming your way. Pat the designer, Courtney Cronin here. Courtney, still a feel-good Tuesday. Bears still off of that win. Feels like you got a lot of things going your way back in the other direction because it was almost a little nerve-wracking if you were going to start there 0-3. We got to talk about some of the things that you noticed in the game and some of the excitement that the Bears have now with an opportunity heading into week 4 here versus the Vegas Raiders. Also, take a look at some of the things that need to improve heading into week 4. As exciting as that win was, there's still some ups and downs that we saw. What do we want to see improve, and can it with some of the injury issues that the Bears do have right now? We'll talk about all that and more on today's episode of the Chicago Bears podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Today's episode, as always, brought to you by the Advantage Dealer Group. Find your next Chevy, Toyota, or Acura and drive off in under 60 minutes and they'll make your first car payment. Also brought to you by the Hard Rock Casino in Northern Indiana. Las Vegas style gaming, just 30 minutes from Soldier Field, exit 6, I-80-94. Courtney, how are you?
I'm good. I didn't get a free hot dog today. I don't have the patience to wait in line, but I saw a bunch of people posting things from the Wiener Circle. I saw that Staley made it all the way down there, which is kind of cool. It's neat that there's all this goodwill built up after a win. It shows you, like, things like this, I think, show you how good of a sports town Chicago is when something finally breaks through, when a team finally wins, especially when it's the Bears, how much it can bring the community together. So it's been cool to see people on social media all day posting about it and showing the line around the building. And I think Caleb's dog made an appearance down there. I don't think he did. I don't think he did.
In jersey, in uniform, Courtney.
That's cool. I think it's cool. And it definitely... I think like the last couple days just, have been good for this fan base and certainly good for the team to not start 0-3 because we know it's like next to impossible to make the playoffs when you are at that spot. And, right now going into week 4, they're in the same spot that the Kansas City Chiefs, that the Baltimore Ravens are in. And, certainly they're not feeling probably as good as those teams that they can climb out of those holes, but it is something to be said about the early season NFL slate and what that's done for the Bears. Yeah,
100%. And I think, the Bears have, Ben Johnson has talked about it a ton, right? This week coming up is going to be big for the team because that week 5 bye, it may not be great for the players in the long run. We were talking before the show, right? We're probably going to be tired by the time week 14 rolls around, but it gives the coaches an opportunity to really reassess. And it'll be interesting to see what position are you in. 2-2, a very different spot than 1-3, especially with Washington after that. And I think you can take a lot of the stuff that we saw in this game, Courtney, and take that right into this Vegas Raiders game. Case in point, I think the offense, essentially, for lack of a better term, is kind of going to have to play a little bit of defense for this team, somewhat of what we've seen the Bengals do in the past, what we have seen at times Lamar Jackson do, although that defense has been pretty stout for most of his time there. But kind of where, hey, the best defense that you're going to play heading into this Vegas game is just keeping the opposing offense off of the field. I thought that third quarter drive coming out of that 2-minute drill was beautiful coaching, beautiful execution, some of the best football we've seen played at Soldier Field, dare I say, since Lovie Smith was in the building.
That would have gone down as the best drive that they had all game had they not had what was it, 19-play drive?
19 plays, yeah.
It's hilarious, by the way, that like the Bears do that. They have a complete game by their standards, and then you watch Detroit try to go one-up them in every single facet. Yes. Triple option, going for it 3 times on 4th down in their win they had against the Ravens, along with a drive that took 10-something minutes off the clock. But that 2-minute drive is so emblematic of the team that they want to become, because we saw them throughout training camp practice 2-minute every single time we were out there, the situational football stuff that they've been harping on. And you get to see, I keep calling it proof of concept, because what you have watched them rep over and over and over again, whether it was 2-minute drill or the long play drive that, they would do throughout training camp, or even Ben Johnson said yesterday, he's like, yeah, you guys are probably watching and being like, wow, this is really sloppy football. But it's proof of concept that those things work when you've practiced them, when you know how it's supposed to feel out there, when you know how the execution's supposed to go, and then you can wear down a defense with those. But, I'm impressed by that 2-minute drive, because Caleb looked so comfortable in leading the team to the end zone there, to get a score at halftime, to build yourself a margin of 10 points to where you didn't feel like you had to play tight in the second half. Like, I think they came out in that third quarter and felt like they could be a little loose with it. Not that you want to like go out there and not convert, or God forbid if they would have gone down on that drive and not scored after taking that much time off the clock. It did something for them. And that's good for these players and the intention that you're watching them call the game with on offense, where Ben Johnson doesn't have to be perfect because he feels like Caleb Williams and some of his playmaking outside of structure can right some wrongs there, but also that those two are on the same page of what's being asked the quarterback to do. And I thought, walking away from that win, there was a lot of positives there, but seriously, that play calling on that drive, had it not been for what happened in the third quarter, that's what I think we'd be talking about, just how inevitable they felt there in that 2-minute moment where they could score and go into the locker room knowing that they had done what they came out there to do offensively.
It feels like the argument whenever the Bears go out and beat a team, and listen, in the last couple of years, it has proven true, is that all of a sudden that team is not very good. That's not the conversation we were having about that Dallas team going into that week. There was a lot of praise for the offense that they had. I think there was some questions on Flus's defense, and me and you talked about here, unless Flus changed who he was completely, they were going to be sending 4 and running zone, and that was going to be, kind of an advantage Caleb Williams there. But was this game more a situation in your mind that the offense is working, things are starting to click, the Bears are putting together exactly the things that Ben Johnson has said, or a good offense, if you want to call it that, after what we saw a couple of weeks ago where Caleb looked fine versus Detroit, and now you see him look really good versus Dallas team, just got an opportunity to go out there and beat up a bad defense?
Dallas is a 64-yard field goal miss away from being 0-3. So I do think that it's not unfair to point out that this is a team whose defense is a struggle right now. Offensively, they have an offense that can compete with anybody. Didn't really look like that after they lost CeeDee Lamb the other day, but because let's not act like the Bears were doing to the Cowboys what the Lions were doing to the Ravens last night, and sack after sack after sack after sack. The Bears didn't get a sack until the third quarter. That is absolutely something that continues to be an issue here. The pass rush needs to be addressed. But there's a lot of good that was shown in that game that I think can carry over regardless of who the opponent was. Now, when you're not pressured, he's only pressured on 7 dropbacks on Sunday, which of course, he didn't take a sack coming out of that game. I think that's a really important stat that can't be overlooked, because the way that he was able to do that was better pass protection, but it wasn't like no one's getting past anybody. I know Braxton Jones didn't give up a pressure in that game, but they had a 65% pass block win rate. That's 11th out of Caleb's 20 starts, right? Between all the offensive line play that has happened over a year and a quarter right now for him, that's not the worst. It's not the best, but it's right there in the middle. He made them right in some of those instances, which to me, that is a takeaway. Playing within structure, what they have told him they want him to do since his coaching staff got here, that's a takeaway. There's things you can really like, regardless of whether you're playing the Dallas Cowboys or whether they at some point someday play the Buffalo Bills, this iteration of them. I don't know. I mean, I know they're not on the schedule this year, but you know what I mean.
You got some tough ones. You got the Eagles, you got Baltimore. Well, I don't know what Baltimore is now, actually.
I know, right? No, but I mean, there's good within this, that just because the Dallas Cowboys are a mess right now on defense, that it's not like, oh, well, they played the Cowboys, it doesn't count. It absolutely counts, because you saw a quarterback who was patient. You saw a quarterback who was doing what his play caller asked. You saw a play caller put his money where his mouth is and say, I'm going to get the tight ends more involved. What's the first play of the game? A play to Colston Loveland. What's the, later on in the game, he's getting Cole Kmet involved on the, finding him in the back of the end zone, the big play to Colston Loveland that set up the Rome Odunze touchdown. There's trick plays in there. There's a lot to like. And certainly there's a lot that needs to be fixed. I still think they need to run the ball better. But you can't look at that performance and say that was what we have been waiting to see Caleb Williams do for a long time now. Now, if he can do it against Vegas, you're feeling more comfortable. If he can do it against that Washington defense coming off the bye, you're feeling like it's working. It's not just a one-off. It's actually working.
Yeah, and listen, Courtney, coming out of this game, I thought your article was great talking about the no sacks that Caleb Williams took because to
It's
me,
such an important stat, and it's not
yeah,
just that like, oh, the offensive line fixed everything. I think a lot of that had to do with
that,
Caleb. Like
yeah,
he actually averaged a longer time to throw the ball this game. It was like 3.2 seconds on average, which is less, is more than what he had thrown, at least throughout most of that Detroit game. It wasn't like he was holding on the ball too long in Detroit. It just was that they were playing from behind. But I think that shows you he could make right when the offensive line might have been in a disadvantage, at a disadvantage. And I think that to me is a major growth from the quarterback, that he isn't ejecting from the pocket every time something doesn't go right.
Yeah, 100%. And there were times where he was willing to stand in there a little bit longer to try and deliver a football. That ball to Luther Bird in the pocket's closing around him in that 2-minute drill. And he stands back there and he gets a good ball
right
over
down
to
the
Luther
seam.
Bird and right down the seam. Like, those are the moments where it does feel like, the last couple of seasons, you felt like you weren't going into the game with a scheme and a team that was prepared for the moment. In this game, it felt like, yeah, there's still people that are getting past Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones, whatever it is. There's still some offensive line issues, but I thought how Ben Johnson was calling the game, how he was scheming the game up. And I think you could say the same thing about Dennis Allen. There wasn't pressure up front until, like you said, that third quarter where really they could pin their ears back. But I thought the scheme really made maybe some deficiencies that you may have on this team a heck of a lot better. And as long as the quarterback and on the defensive side, your middle linebacker in Tremaine Edmonds are comfortable in those moments, you can go out there and play winning football. I thought that was really a sign that this is a team that if they buy into what Ben Johnson is selling, and that game looked like they bought in 110%. You see DJ Moore, you see Roma Dunze, whoever it is, blocking far down the field. Cole Kmet doing some of the best blocking we've seen him do. Like, I think those are the moments where you look back and you say, yeah, these are the same players that Matt Eberflus had a year ago for the most part, outside of a couple of rookies. But this looked like a completely different football team. And I thought this was Caleb Williams' most complete football game he's played in his career.
Yeah, and I know people are going to point to the Jacksonville game. He threw 4 touchdowns there as well. But like the way that he operated from the pocket, the yards per attempt, the patience to stay in there. 2 of those touchdowns he threw under duress.
Yeah.
And like, they keep talking, or they keep showing up in places that they had once again been practicing a lot. Those high back 5 throws in the back of the end zone. We saw it to DJ Moore. We saw it to Cole Kmet. Like, I really think it's neat when you can watch something that this team had done a lot of in practice and see it show up in a game. What did they talk about last week? We're building championship caliber habits in practice because we don't have them right now. Well, it is neat to see the things that they practice show up in the game and them executing it at the level that Ben Johnson says it needs to be in order to be really good, in order to be a winning football team. So so many times it's like one person, what's the saying? One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah.
I think that there's truth to that to a degree, where a new coaching staff can inherit old players from a different coaching staff and make them work. I still think that there are questions, especially on the defensive side of the ball, about scheme fits, especially with this pass rush. But so much of what we've seen so far is players buying into the coaching and players being used in a proper way. And I know you've seen the meme or the thing that's going around on Twitter about Shane Waldron.
He's become the wide receiver killer, Courtney. It's kind of wild.
He leaves Seattle. We see what happens with Jackson. We see what happened with Jackson Smith and Jigba. He leaves the Bears. Roma Dunze breaks out and has a really hot start to the season. He's now down in Jacksonville, and Brian Thomas is regressing. So I think there's a lot of truth in the humor there, though, about the type of coaching these players are getting. And I know you can't blame it all on Shane Waldron. He's a pass game coordinator down in Jacksonville, but it's just kind of like convenient timing to make that remark, because these players and what they're being asked to do and the blocking from the receivers, more so than we saw them be asked to do last year in the run game. Like, it's the buy-in element that I think is finally paying off. And when the players can see that proof of concept, I think they're much more willing to be like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and execute this the way that they're asking me to, because I see it actually works.
Yeah.
Same with the quarterback.
Truly wonder how much tape they're watching down there in Jacksonville. Just questions all over the place with that team. It is insane. I'm not gonna lie. Like the pass charts all look the same, Courtney. Jackson Smith and Jigba rookie year, Rome Odunze rookie year, Brian Thomas year 2. Go look at the passing charts or the route charts, I guess I should say. It is pretty insane. But I think you bring up a good point, especially with this team. Listen, there's a lot of positives coming out of this game, and hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review on the podcast side. Y'all know what to do.
Your roof's got more layers than the Conspiracy Podcast.
Is that a sandwich wrapper?
Ah, yes. Vintage 1988. It really builds character.
Avondale Roofing. Inspect smarter, dig deeper, and get to the core of your roof's health.
There's a lot of positives coming out of this game right now, and I think that you have a team that you feel like is actually doing what Ben Johnson said, is getting incrementally better week over week. And by week 3, I almost said Shane Waldron. Declan Doyle told us, right, that's where you want to see some major leaps in understanding this system. But it ain't all sunshine and rainbows, and I think we saw some of that in this game. Now, the run game, I think, is going to be an interesting one, Courtney, because to me, the run game felt like you utilized it the right way, but it didn't feel dominant. What I mean by that, 11 runs in a row, that's death by 1,000 cuts. As long as Caleb Williams is accurate in some of those 3rd and 6 situations, we're going to keep this drive going. We're going to be able to wear you down before you can wear us down. I like that mindset, but you can't look at this Bears run game right now and feel like you have the answer in that backfield. I felt really excited about that Kyle Monangai run of -8 yards where he's running people over and just won't go down, because I think you need some of that. He won't quit. But outside of that, you didn't see elite run production behind an offensive line that actually did pretty good run blocking that game as well. Is that something that's going to be a major concern heading into this week 4 matchup versus Vegas?
They need to figure out, like, to be consistent with it, because they were, and it's almost, a lot of times you hear about coaches abandoning the run when they're behind, but they were up. They were up by 10 at the time that 11 straight runs within the 19-play drive was happening. So if you commit to it and you stick with it, you are playing the game of draining down the clock, but that's what the Bears strategically would like to do in that instance. I thought that was smart. I just don't buy that, like, you can't get this thing going faster and more efficiently than they did in the first half. Like, 87 yards throughout the game. Nobody's looking back at this and saying what a dominant performance on the ground. Was it job well done? Was it all they needed to do? Sure. They won 31-14. They hadn't put up 30 plus points at Soldier Field in a very long time. And that's the identity. They want to be a team that scores a lot of points. But, DeAndre Swift averaged 2.5 yards a carry. The team as a whole averaged 3 yards a carry on the ground. That's not good.
He left the first half with 5, Courtney. He's your $8 million back.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you spent all this money on a running back who's not giving you the big money production. And I just cannot, for the life of me, Pat, figure out what they're doing with Kyle Monangai and why he's, so used so sporadically on the ground. Like, I know you have a quarterback who can scramble, but that's obviously not going to ever really be what you want to factor. You never want to have that be like a humongous factor in the game unless it's a win. I think that Caleb Williams can be dangerous there, but using him in spurts. Well, how are you supplementing DeAndre Swift then? You're still using DJ Moore in the backfield. What did that get you? 3 carries for 7 yards? Yeah. 2.3 yards per carry, like, not much at all. Like, I don't understand the formula here for using the run game the way that like, what is it supporting here? Was it supporting Caleb Williams and getting the explosive pass plays going? Not really. It didn't really set anything up outside of the 11 plays to get down into the red zone to then, break off some big plays to be able to then find DJ Moore in the end zone on 4th down. But other than that, I don't think that Ben Johnson quite has the pulse yet that he wants to on the run game and how to use it as a weapon.
Which I think, honestly, when you talk about that 11-play drive, Courtney, that's a drive you can only have if you're up. Like, that drive, to me, I think strategically. You'd be using
clock. You'd be using clock that you don't need to at that point in order to, you'd be killing the clock that you would need to then get back in the game if you were down doing that.
Yeah, that drive strategically, to me, I thought was genius, because at that point, your offense had held the ball for 11 minutes of offense. Coming out of the half, your defense probably was a little bit tired, or so, mostly because they couldn't get to Dak Prescott all pretty much for that entire first half. And they held the ball for 18 minutes and 44 seconds. Now, you scored quickly. The flea flicker play was an 11-second drive that you got into the end zone on. So it is still a positive thing. But I thought that was a genius play by Ben Johnson because it ate so much time. It gave your defense an opportunity to reset. But again, you really can only be in that situation if you're winning the game in the manner that the Bears were. You capped off, that put them up 31-14 at that point. Like you were
the
up
final
20,
score.
You know what I mean? Like you can't do that on a play in and play out basis. And so I truly wonder, and I know we're seeing like some of the short passes to DeAndre Swift that he's taking for big carries. I do think he's a better receiver than he is a running back, but I wonder if we're seeing it be this way, Courtney, because Ben Johnson early on understands we don't have enough at the running back position right now. And I'm not going to force it. I'm going to find ways to kind of do that extended run game where you got pitches, you've got wide receiver end arounds, you got screen passes, which did we see a screen pass in this game?
I don't think so.
Is that the first time in like probably 4 years that we didn't see a screen pass, Courtney?
You've got wide receivers in the backfield. That's an extension of that. Yeah, I know I keep referencing Detroit, and a lot of it's based on what we saw and how dominant that performance was on Monday night. But look at what Ben Johnson came from. Like, it's hard to argue that the personnel is night and day from David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, the versatility. Like, yeah, Montgomery is your in-between the tackles rusher, but he can do so much more than that. Yeah. So can Jahmyr Gibbs. You don't have that here. So you have to find a way around that. And the way around it is, for right now, using DJ Moore on a couple downs a couple plays out of the backfield, trying to, the end arounds. Like you were manufacturing a running game off of plays that, really aren't that. And I don't think that's a spot that you want to live in if you're the Bears, but I also don't really know, their roster right now, here's what's interesting. The roster right now is at 52 players because of Jalen Johnson, Karan Amagaji, and Karan going to IR. So there's room if they want to sign somebody else. Now, who's out there? You know what I mean? Like, they're not trading for anybody right now. The run game itself, it is what it is at this point. I don't see it really, like, personnel wise, I don't see how it improves. But that, just keep that in mind. They do have an open roster spot. I personally think that's a roster spot that you use on defensive back at some point this week because you kind of need another one. You need some more depth back there. Geno Smith, despite what he was in week 2, he did throw 3 touchdowns this past week against the Commanders defense. So I don't know. To me, this run game it's not great right now. And did it suffice in week 3? Sure. But that's not going to get you against better run defenses and better defenses, period.
Listen, and I think that's going to be the tough part. Listen, you saw how the run game struggled week 1 versus the Vikings, who look like a really good run defense yet again. We saw it, here. Dallas isn't a great run defense, but when you have Kenny Clark out there, heck, you can be death by 1,000 cuts, but again, you being up gave you the advantage in that situation. If it's a tie ball game, that's going to wear you out more than it's going to wear them out. And Kenny Clark's going to be in a more advantageous situation then. I don't know how the run game gets fixed. I still think it's an indictment of Ryan Poles that you went through a draft where, listen, I'm not taking Genty in the first. I like the running backs that were there in the second. I think you're kind of pushing it, but now you're starting to get to the point where you've got to justify 2 years in a row letting guys who are making impacts on rosters right now go past so that you can take guys who are currently not making an impact on your roster. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Some names that are available right now. I guess there's kind of connections. Jamal Williams is out there, 30 years old. That's a connection to both of them.
I think he worked out for the Bears at some point this summertime during training camp.
That's a connection to both Dennis Allen and to Ben Johnson. So possibly former Bear, Deontay Foreman. Deontay Foreman is available, 29 years old.
What was your favorite moment of the Deontay Foreman era? Can you name one?
Oakland, wasn't it, or Vegas? I guess. Well, if you sign up before Vegas, that'd be interesting. The Tyson Bagent first start.
none of these guys are gonna really make your run game pop. No. That's what I don't see it. Like, I don't see how it gets the run, like the personnel gets that much better based on who they have right now and based on who the options are out there. Unless they were to make a trade. Deadline is, less than 2 months away. I don't know if you're trading for a running back though at the deadline. Like that to me. That to me would be like malpractice on the team you are, on the front office.
Yeah, it'll heavily depend on the team you are. Sure. Like if you feel like, hey, we've literally figured everything else out except this running back position, then maybe you trade for a running back in that situation. But like, again, I go back to it. Bucky Irving was there. You had names like Cam Scatterbo there, who first time he gets an opportunity to run the football is running angry. Is Cam Scatterbo going to be on a team in 6 years? I don't know. Like he's a bang his head into you kind of running back, but he could have helped you this season. And maybe Kyle Monangai is that guy. And like you said, just needs to be given the opportunity. But it truly feels like, and I think what I loved about coming into this game and what feels like it's going to continue this season. Remember, Ben Johnson brought up the competition aspect of practice because of what the rookies were doing. And it seems like they came to compete that week and got more opportunity. Maybe that's what he's waiting to see from Kyle Monangai, because it doesn't seem like he has that much of a tie to DeAndre Swift being the starting running back here. Let's look at the other side of the ball real quick, and we've mentioned it a couple of times, but I think this is going to be the biggest thing. And you hit the nail on the head. Geno Smith still just shy of 300 yards, 3 touchdowns in that game. I know some people are going to look at that and say, oh, well, the Commanders were up 34-10 at that point, so they took their foot off the pedals. We've watched the Bears blow a game in the fourth quarter this season already. I think that defensive line is going to be incredibly important this week. I know Grady Jarrett was in the locker room talking about, how, or in that team meeting, I should say, kind of saying we need to compete more. We need to do more. And I think the rest of the defense responded. I didn't feel that way about the defensive line for most of that game, though, Courtney. I think that's going to be something serious to watch as we go into this week 4.
Yeah, like I know it was great that Dominique Robinson and Montez Sweat got sacks when they were able to, and it was clear they were able to tee off and pass rush late in the game. This team is still lacking up front, and that's a problem. Like I really don't think that their pass rush has much teeth to it right now. They didn't come away with any sacks and 4 quarterback hits in the Detroit game, and then this past week, even when they had the clear advantage on defense because of the takeaways, and they were getting opportunities for the offense to get back on the field, and the defense was rested. They weren't fatigued. Yet that still wasn't happening. But lo and behold, Montez Sweat's out there and he wins a one-on-one matchup. Why weren't they moving him around more is my question. If you talk about this guy can rush anywhere from the 3 technique to the 5 technique, why are they not moving him around more? I was just a little surprised by that. I really was, because this is a clear issue with your team. And maybe it's something they address more at the bye, but their pass rush right now is not in a spot where it can make much of an impact when it's playing like this. You were up at this point 31-14 when Sweat sack came in, and probably right around that time when the Robinson sack came in the third quarter. It's not that effective. And I think it was good that you saw a couple adjustments, obviously using Daniel Hardy as the fifth defensive lineman out there in your Sam spot when they were in base. Yeah. But why is he not rushing the passer? I thought that's why he made the roster. I really did. I thought that's because we saw him on pass rush downs in training camp, he can get after the quarterback. So why weren't they sending him? Why weren't they blitzing more with him? They have one of the lower blitz rates in the league right now, a bottom 22 blitz rate. I just was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, and listen, it's not like you're going up against the Dallas offensive line of 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. This is an offensive line that's got some young pieces on it, that had a center who was banged up coming into this game on it, right? And Cooper Beebe, there were some different situations there where it was kind of a game. Not to say that you thought you were going to be teeing off on Dak, because I'm not saying this offensive line for Dallas is bad. I think it's serviceable, but as much as we can say, the DB room, they showed up. As banged up as they are, they showed up. I thought the linebackers really showed up. You give hats off to Noah Sewell, hats off to Tremaine Edmonds. As banged up as they are, no TJ Edwards out there, right? I thought, you were getting some hard hits from Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker in the blitz in that game. They were making an impact. And Courtney, the one spot that I feel the most concerned about, those are your starters. Mm-hmm. Those are the guys that you paid to make an impact, that you thought this is going to be the defensive line that forces pressure in the face of quarterbacks down in and down out. It's not replacement guys in there. It's not backup guys in there. And even though I will say Grady Jarrett looked like he was fighting to get through practice. When he was at the game, he looked ready to go. But like practice-wise, you could tell he was clearly banged up. But Montez Sweat, Javon Dexter, Grady Jarrett, Dayo Odeyingbo, those are the names that you went out and spent big money on to get pressure on the quarterback. And what you have to show for it through 3 weeks right now is, I believe, 3 sacks on the season. That's just not good enough. And it's not even 3 sacks, but you're consistently in the face of the quarterback. It's 3 sacks and the quarterback's able to stand back there and make a sandwich over the last couple of weeks until, like we said, in that third and fourth quarter, you can kind of pin your ears back and just say, I don't have to worry about anything behind me.
Yeah, I think it's 5 because they had 3 in the first game and then they had 2 this past game, none against the
Lions. Okay, yeah.
But like, I'm not trying to sugarcoat this or like find a silver lining here. I mean, they were around the quarterback a little bit more this past week. They came away with 7 quarterback hits. So that's good. But like, how can you generate those pressures into sacks, into being able to force their team into 2nd and long and 3rd and long and disadvantageous situations for their offense? Because they're not there yet. They're not changing the game up front. What was happening on the back end was Dennis Allen adjusting. He adjusts to protect his coverage.
Yes.
He's playing more quarters. Like that's what you have to do when you're that injured back there. But it just feels weird that nothing really adjusted up front all that much when they had talked so much about, well, we want to get Montez's one-on-one matchups. Well, then why aren't you moving him around more? Like Dayo Odeyingbo, who was, off to a nice start in that first game, has kind of been a non-factor then the next 2 weeks, Detroit and Dallas. I think that Grady Jarrett was battling through as best he could. Obviously, he has a knee injury, and it's something that they're going to have to monitor with him because it is the same knee that he injured 2 years ago. I don't understand why this pass rush just feels so meek right now when they have talked about it needs to be better. So why aren't you bringing extra pressure? Why aren't you blitzing more? Like there's no real rhyme or reason to it. I don't know.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do versus the Vegas Raiders here. Now, I will say this, Courtney. Outside of Colton Miller, it doesn't seem like there's a good player on that team, on that offensive line that you're going up against. I was a big Jackson Powers Johnson guy. I don't know if he's an NFL guard. Feels like he could be a center, but he definitely does not feel like an NFL guard. Jordan Meredith is fine. Dylan Parham is not good. Like you should be advantage Bears. I'm at PFF right now. Coming into week 3, had them ranked as the 28th offensive line. They gave up 5 sacks for Geno Smith in that game versus Washington. So I would assume that is probably going the other direction. Sometimes it is truly just about building confidence. Sometimes it is truly just about starting to get that ball rolling. And I think we saw that with a team last year like Washington, who, I don't think that was a defense that anybody thought was a world beater, but was it a defense that could do enough? Yeah. It was more times than not, all the way to an NFC championship game. And I think that's kind of what this Bears team is going to have to be. Your offense is going to have to play a heck of a lot of defense. And realistically speaking, like you're going to have to try and keep that defense on the field probably right around 25 to 28 minutes, because when they are fresh, they're able to go out there and make all the plays in the world. When they start to get a little tired, that's when we see what we saw versus Minnesota. Let's finish it out with this, Courtney. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. I know what to do. Just quick storyline. What's the storyline if the Bears go into the bye 2-2? What's the storyline if they go into the bye 1-3?
2-2. I mean, I know it was a winning record going into the bye last year, but it feels like that is the best case scenario. And I guarantee there'll be a lot of people who tell you, oh no, this is exactly where I thought they'd be. They'd lose to the 2 division opponents. They'd beat Vegas. They'd beat Dallas, and they're riding high. This bye is as tough as it's going to be come week 13 if they're injured, like just the attrition of the season and all of that. Like this bye comes at a great time to allow them to reset. If they need to make positional changes with starters, whether it's left tackle, whether it's somebody along the defensive line, whether it's reevaluating what they're doing on the back end of this defense amid being so injured, now's the perfect time to do it. And for Ben Johnson, if they're 2-2, 1-3 is going to sound they're not going to be happy at 1-3, and nor should they be, because Vegas is absolutely a gettable team right now. They are winless. Ashton Genty isn't this world beater that we were told he was going to be. And I think obviously like teams make him one-dimensional. So the Bears run defense is going to hope that they better show up, because Ashton Genty was a non-factor. He averaged 3.7 yards per carry last week, and they keep feeding him. They feed him a lot, and he had the one run of nearly 20 yards. But
I love that his complaint is "Give me the ball." They're giving it. It's 17 carries, brother. Like, Trey Smith is begging for 17 carries.
He's not doing anything with it. So, like, they'll feel if they lose this game, it's a missed opportunity, and then the meat of the schedule starts coming off the bye, and they get that's where it can get kind of tough. Obviously, they have the Giants and the Saints in there, so those should be wins. But everything else, like, you're going to have Green Bay in there, you're going to see Minnesota again, you're going to see the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, it's going to be a lot. But if they're 2-2 at the bye, they're feeling really good about the state of things, and that slowly but surely it's coming along and it's working, especially on offense. Defense, I think they've got some questions they've got to figure out here, and a collective putting the minds together to figure out how they get a pass rush going will be the priority next week for them, as they're in the middle of the bye week.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening here. Bears are banged up. Some injury updates. Jalen Johnson going to have surgery on that core, but there's a chance he may come back this season, Courtney, if the Bears are in it.
That's what Ben Johnson said. And I'm not surprised that, with this type of surgery, he had to have this, because it's like one of those things, the way that like we were, gathering information on it last week, it sounded like you can let it heal on its own. It might not heal properly, and then you're double screwed if something else bad happens. So this is the best and only option really he had. Guess he could come back late, but what kind of team are they going to be if it's December and he's feeling like he can make his way back on the field? If they're a team that's fighting for a playoff spot, maybe. But if they're a team that doesn't, is a couple games back from 500, no. No. But then there's that injury, and then there's Colston Loveland, who had the hip injury. He's the one who left the game and didn't come back, but it sounds like that's not that serious. Sounds like he'll have a chance to play in Vegas, which he was having a good game up until the point where he got hurt. So I think for him to pick back up on that, to continue to utilize the tight ends the way that Ben Johnson had planned to, and still was able to do a little bit with Cole Kmet, that would be a really big get if they can get him back.
Yeah, let's hope we can cut down on that CVS receipt this week, because that injury list was long, and Kyler Gordon probably a post-bye comeback at this point.
They said week to week for him and TJ Edwards. So, if he's able to go, though, I mean, I think you absolutely make him play if he's ready to go, and not just wait till after the bye and then have it be 2 more weeks. But I think you're just going to be thinking, all right, what is he one step away from hurting his hamstring again, just with knowing the risk of re-injury with him. And that's, apparently what happened when he felt tightness, and now has been out for 2 weeks since he was off the injury report with it. So definitely one to monitor, both him and TJ Edwards. Yeah, keep an eye out on that. We'll keep you updated here on the Chicago Bears podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. For Courtney Cronin, it is your boy Pat the Designer, back at it again. Also, if you have the new hype button, press that hype button, man. Hype us up over here at the Chicago Bears podcast. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear down. One love. Peace.